I want you to finish a sentence for me. The thing that surprised me most about the toy industry was...
When I started, I would say it was really the secrecy of it was shocking.
You are listening to Making It in the Toy Industry, episode number 164. Hey there, toy people. Azhelle Wade here, and welcome back to another episode of the Toy Coach Podcast, Making It in the Toy Industry. This week's episode is sponsored by Longpack Toys. If you are looking for a factory to produce your next toy or game product, you've got to know about Longpack. Longpack Toys is a manufacturer with over 20 years of experience producing high-quality plastic, vinyl, and wooden toys and game products for clients in over 30 countries. When you work with Longpack, you'll get a supportive team of engineers, product managers, and toy designers on your side to help you find the perfect balance between quality and cost. Longpack's manufacturing abilities include injection molding, blow molding, ultrasonic welding, spray painting, silkscreen printing, hot stamping, and heat transfer capabilities. To get started today, send an email to toys@longpack.com and let them know the Toy Coach sent you. Today's guest on the podcast is my friend Rachel Harmuth, a toy industry leader on a mission to impact the industry and help build MESH skills. MESH stands for mental, emotional, and social health skills for children, and she's doing it by toys and game awareness. So with a passion about play and creating products that create an impact on kids' lives, Rachel's really made a name for herself in this MESH space, being the head at ThinkFun. And I'm excited to have her on the show today, and she's going to give us a masterclass on MESH. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I want to start first and just learn a little bit about your toy history, your toy story, and then get into your amazing MESH presentation. How did you first break into the toy industry?
Well, it's interesting. I actually, when I was a kid, I was dead set that I was going to be in theater. Theater was my world. And I went to college at Carnegie Mellon, totally focused on directing, and then ended up in costume and scenic design. And that was my whole life. And then I had a professor who sort of, as many professors do, changed the course of your life. And he sat me down one day and he said, it was my junior year, beginning of my junior year. And he said, you need to be a toy designer. And it was like, what?
What is
That's
that?
a thing?
Yeah.
Like, it never occurred to me that that was something that was possible, but it was absolutely spot on. And so I completely did this like shift and spent all this time studying, toys and talking to anybody who would talk to me and walking up and down the aisles of, Toys R Us back then and really digging in and thought, my God, this is totally where I should be. So I switched into industrial design, and any project we did, I just did for kids. Right. So came out and started my very first job as a toy designer at Connects when Connects was a baby. And it was this amazing creative experience of just developing this construction toy that was so open-ended and had so many opportunities. And I was there for, a total of 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I was in design for several years. And then I had an opportunity to move into marketing, which was really cool because I had no idea what marketing did and brand management. So I did that for a couple of years. And then at the very end, I had an opportunity to move into sales, which at first, when the folks from sales came and they're like, hey, there's this job, we think you should take it. So I had this opportunity came up in sales, and when you first think sales after you've been in design and marketing, and it was like, really? But I had a really great head of sales who said to me, you want to run a company someday, don't you? And I was like, I really do. And he was brilliant. He was like, follow your product line. You've spent years developing the product line. He's like, see it all the way through. And that was a fantastic experience. So I actually switched from marketing to sales at Toy Fair. I went and prepped the whole thing as marketing, and then the day Toy Fair opened, I moved into sales.
Shut up.
And so,
that's very
cool. Really cool experience. So I was at Connects for 9 years total. And then I got a call from an old friend who's like, hey, there's this job. And I was like, oh, okay, talk to me about it. And it was Klutz. And for me, Klutz was just my happy brand, right? Like the thing
that was my dream brand too. Like,
right?
I always wanted to work for Klutz.
Yep. So I got this call for Klutz, and they were in California, but they were looking for an East Coast person.
Oh, perfect.
And so I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I started with Klutz, and I actually, I was with Klutz for a total of 15 years. Like, it was an
What?
amazing, amazing company and experience. And through the transition with so Scholastic had purchased Klutz right before I started. And so I got to sort of experience Klutz as it like the original sort of structure and foundation, and then became part of Scholastic and did both for a while, which was a
Right.
really interesting dynamic because books and toys are actually a very different industry in terms of how they're sold and how they're
Yeah.
bought, and sort of what the structure of the sales is and how it develops. So it was a really great experience. And then in the end, Klutz had gone through a cycle of a couple different GMs trying to figure out how to run it, with it being California and the parent company being in New York. So eventually we moved the whole thing to New York, and I got to sort of really dive back in completely and become entirely Klutz, and run sales there with just a fantastic team. And so it was an amazing sort of growing up experience and
Yeah.
watching the life cycle of a company, and see how acquisition works and see how product can grow and change with different focuses and different leads. And it was just it was an amazing 15 years. And so I was there, and I had, again, an old friend called me up and said, hey, there's this job. And I was like, no, I'm really happy. Like, I have this amazing team, this great group.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, just listen. And I was like,
He's like, you
okay.
don't know what you need. I know what you need.
Exactly. That was exactly it. And he was right, because he was like, hey, it's fat brain. And it was like,
Oh.
fat brain. Like, oh my God, those like really innovative guys, right? Like,
Yeah.
everything I knew about fat brain was that it was just an incredibly nice group of people. They were making these really innovative products that were sort of pushing the boundaries on things, using different materials, really beautiful design. And I thought, wow, to be able to come to a company that's still quite young in the wholesale part of their business and be part of the formation of that into a line and into a real, brand, was just a great
Incredible. Yeah.
opportunity. So yeah, so I went to Fat Brain, and I was at Fat Brain for 5 years.
Wow.
Again, through the acquisition with Tomy and that whole experience. But now I kind of like, I'm like, oh, I've done this before. Like, all right, I got this, right? Like, it was a
The
really, really
acquisition thing? Is
cool.
that what you were thinking? Like,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
so Tomy acquired them. I was at Fat Brain for about, say, about 3.5 years before they were acquired by Tomy.
Yeah.
But it was a different experience when, again, when you've sort of been through that sort of acquisition process before and
Hmm.
seen how it can be done really beautifully. And there was such a desire with Tomy to maintain the integrity of the brand
Yeah.
of Fat Brain that was really important. It was a great experience. And we had really, the folks at Tomy were really fantastic. So I was there for about another year or so after the acquisition. And then I got a call for ThinkFun. And
Oh,
ThinkFun was like a whole other, my kids grew up on ThinkFun, right? Like,
really?
yeah. So like we had, I would say, almost every product
So it felt like almost
that,
full circle. You're like, this
yeah.
makes sense. This makes sense. I want you to finish a sentence for me. The thing that surprised me most about the toy industry was.
When I started, I would say it was really the secrecy of it was shocking. Coming, well, okay, so when I first started, when I got the, my professor sat me down and said you need to be a toy designer. Of course, I did all this research, and uh, I found out about Toy Fair. And I was like, oh, I have to go to Toy Fair, right? And I was 20 at the time, and I got a plane ticket to New York City. Well, first I found out you had to be a company,
Right.
so I incorporated a company so I could go to Toy Fair, right? No
Right.
purpose beyond just being able to go to Toy Fair and like learn. I got a hotel room, like saved up all my pennies and got a hotel room. And I
Oh.
went to New York City, and it was in the toy building at this point. And I
Hmm.
like marched myself in day one, all excited. And I walked into a showroom and promptly got thrown out and was like, what? Right? Like, what do you mean I can't just walk around and see everything?
Yeah.
Because the assumption is, especially before you understand sort of the business world, and this was also 30 years ago. So, like, really, there was no, internet, there was
Yeah.
no phones with cameras and all that kind of stuff. So, it was just a very closed, secret business, and I just
Yeah.
had no idea walking in. And so, that was sort of my introduction to the toy industry, was getting thrown. And then I proceeded to decide I was going to see everything I could because I had, of course, saved my pennies for a hotel room.
Right.
So I got thrown out of 26 different showrooms
Oh my
that week
gosh.
until I finally was like, okay, I've seen enough,
Oh my
but
gosh.
I think that was, it's such a love of play and a love of wonder, and sort of have that balanced with this business that was very secretive was just a surprise that you don't expect going in. And I think things have changed in a lot of ways now, in the sense that you have sort of there's a greater platform, you see a lot more things, there's a lot more openness just because of the technology that's out there. But
Yeah.
it's still super important to keep, to keep your IP and to keep that moment, so that you have this reveal that has that, like, wow, amazing piece to it. And with that, you've got to have that secrecy to go out there. But that was I think
Yeah.
the biggest surprise to me
Yeah.
coming into the industry. And again, coming in when I was 20 and, very doe-eyed and like, this is going to be so great. We're going to play all day. Um, but in some ways we do,
Yeah.
right? Like we have full on meetings about like, should it be kangaroos or llamas?
Yeah, I
Right?
know.
Like
Yeah.
this is what's amazing. So,
I do enjoy that too. Okay, let's get into the mesh topic.
okay.
So first, before you dive into your presentation, I want you to say where did this idea for building this mesh platform come from? Where'd you get this initial spark?
So this was really interesting. So anytime you start with a new company, what you start with is trying to understand the brand, right?
Yeah.
Like really digging into brand and saying like, who are we? What do we stand for? What is the through line and the promise across all of our products? And so that's, of course, where I started when I started with ThinkFun, was really diving in with the team and understanding what's the brand. And so we did. And then you take your brand and you say, great, we know who we are. Now, how are we relevant
Right.
to consumers? Right? How are we relevant to kids and to parents and to educators and caregivers? And and understand how your brand fits in the world. And it was through that exploration that we really started to look at mesh. It's funny because this is exactly how my little spiel
Well,
starts,
let's
because it's
yeah.
explaining this. So we'll just jump in if
Let's
that works
dive
for you.
right in to
Okay. All right, so this is sort of the story of how we came to this. So, one of the things about ThinkFun, especially when we talk to the founders, and Bill and Andrea are an amazing resource for me. I'm so grateful that they're willing to be phenomenal consultants for us as we move forward. But it was about, looking at STEM. STEM was so crucially important for the last 10 years. And of course, then STEAM, when you added in the arts. And if you talk to the founders of ThinkFun, it's like, yeah, we were STEM before STEM was even a thing, right? That's
right.
just sort of the essence of what the brand is. And so I was so excited to sort of have this amazing historical IP and brand focusing on progression, focusing on learning and on the development of, we call it the power of progression, right? Every time you play, you get better. And so went out into the world and started talking to retailers, started talking to parents. And what I was finding was that while people loved STEM and they loved STEAM, it wasn't what was the foremost thing on their mind. It wasn't what they were walking into a toy store looking for. And so that kind of made us stop and go like, okay, so what are
They looking
people
for.
looking for? Like, what is
Right.
happening right now? Like,
Right.
let's just step away from trying to look specifically at our brand and look at the bigger picture.
Right.
What's going on? And it was, towards I would say the end of the pandemic, but I don't think we're at the end of the pandemic, but after several years of real upheaval. And what we saw is that there was this real social conversation going on about mental health, focused on adults, but that it was extending as the pandemic went on. It was extending down into kids. And that was the conversation that was most prevalent. That was the conversation that a lot of toy store owners were telling me they were having, is this conversation around kids' mental health. And so we took a step back and we started looking at some research to say, okay, how big is this? Like, how important is this overall? And what we found is it was a pretty radical percentage when you looked at, so we looked at places like the National Institute of Health, the Pew Foundation, UNICEF, people who've been doing research around kids and mental health over the course of the pandemic and prior. And what we found is that 71% of parents were saying that their kids had really struggled and had an impact from the pandemic. We had 44% of teenagers reporting feeling sad or hopeless. And these numbers were huge, And then we looked at things like suicide attempts, and there was a 50% increase in suicide attempts in adolescent girls just in the last 2 years.
Gosh. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we kind of went like, wow, this is real and this is substantial, and we need to understand this, because if this is the world that we're publishing product into, it's quite different from what we had talked about 5 years ago when we were really focused on the STEM elements and the education elements. And so we dug in more, right? And of course the big question was, is this really about the pandemic, right? Like, all of us had our lives changed. There was a ton of anxiety and depression and frustration that was happening around that, or is it something bigger than that? And that correlated also with us talking about, is it just teenagers, right? Are we really looking at like 12 plus that are really struggling, or is it a wider range overall? And what we found is that the issues with mental health and kids from the research was showing that it was starting to really raise long before the pandemic. The pandemic just like accelerated the whole thing, right? Like
So many
radical
things.
life change. Yeah, exactly. Like radical life changes and accelerated the talking about it and the intensity of it. But we also found that, we were talking about kids down to 5 years old. There's a 24% increase in ER visits for mental health related reasons for 5 to 11-year-olds, right? Like, this wasn't just about teenagers. This wasn't just about the pandemic, but it was truly growing. And then as we dug in, we found, so the American Academy of Pediatrics and the child and adolescent psychiatrists had come together and declared a national state of emergency. And that was sort of that moment of like, whoa, right? Like, when the doctors and the psychiatrists are saying this is a really serious issue, and they had never said that in their 125 years in existence, oh my gosh, we need to really understand it. So as we were looking, we were also looking at the effects on parents, right? Like, what does this mean for parents who are out there? They're spending significantly more time, significantly more resources trying to figure out how to help their kids. And then we hit sort of that one big moment where in the research it made us stop, which was that 66% of adults thought parenting was more stressful in 2021 than in the year prior.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, in 2020, like, the world shut down. My kids didn't go to school anymore. I couldn't even go to the grocery store. I was working from home and sort of like half trying to teach my kids because they were trying to do online. It was just, it was insane. And you would think that would be the most stressful parenting year ever, right?
Right.
But what the research was showing was actually the next year.
Like dealing with the fallout from the year before.
Exactly.
The emotional fallout. Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. And that made us go like, okay, we really need to take notice of this and understand it. And then for us as a toys and games company, we found out that the majority of parents right now were reporting that their children's mental health was more important to them than their children's academic achievement.
Yes. I remember when you first presented this statistic stuck out to me a lot.
Yeah, right. And that was kind of like, okay,
Unexpected.
we clearly need to, yeah. And so we clearly need to, if we want to be relevant to kids and to parents and have an impact on their life and their development, we need to really dig in here, And so we also knew that wasn't something that a bunch of toy execs sitting in our offices, discussing kangaroos or llamas, could really do. So we wanted it to be based in research. We wanted it to be based in evidence-based science. And so we phoned a friend, right? We went out and we found Dr. Gaboa, and Dr. Gaboa is one of the foremost resilience experts in the country. She's a family practice physician in Pittsburgh, but has been working for years and years, far before the pandemic, on research to help build parenting and parenting skills, and then also dig into the idea of building resiliency and sort of what does that mean overall. And so we brought her 3 different areas we wanted to understand. The first was we wanted to understand like what's actually happening with kids and mental health. And then we wanted to understand, what do kids need to be more resilient now and in the future? Like, what do those skills look like? In the toy industry, we've talked a lot about things like, fine motor skills, gross motor skills. We know about kids learning to cut with scissors and kids identifying letters and numbers, or what we call soft skills with turn taking and pieces like that. But we didn't have any idea how you build resiliency. What do those skills look like? Right. And then once we've had understood what those skills look like, help us understand how toys and games and play can build those skills. Right. Like how do we take this and really concretely make the steps so we understand what kind of products really build resiliency in kids. And through this process, she introduced us to an acronym that we just fell in love with. And that's where the MESH comes from. So MESH, of course, stands for mental, emotional, social health. And it was wonderful to just have a way to talk about it. We've been talking about like SEL, which a lot of school systems are using. Okay. A lot of teachers groups are using social emotional learning. Or we just talk about mental health, but that's a really big, so this was a great way to be able to have a term that allowed us to talk about this idea as a whole, that didn't feel too education oriented or too academic oriented. It also has a really great sort of visual, like the idea of like mesh or a net, and we're sort of catching and supporting was just really beautiful. So then we started to really dig in around mesh. And when we first started talking about mental health in kids, right, we went down the path I think almost everyone did, especially during the pandemic, of the idea of toys that provide comfort. These are really, really important. And if you look at what's sold in the last 3 years in the industry, you see a massive amount of things like fidgets and the squishmallows and the weighted plush and the sensory, but things that you touch and hold and they bring you calm and they make you feel okay, right? And these are all about recovery. Right. And I can't emphasize enough, this is really important, right? Like if a child is in distress, something that brings them calm and recovery is super, super, super important. Yeah. Comfort. But these products don't make you stronger in the future. Yeah. They bring you back to your baseline of okay. And again, essential, but we wanted to understand, okay, but what would make me stronger in the future, or be able to handle sort of the next life disappointment or the next life change that comes down the pike. And so this is where Dr. G really helped us.
Oh, really? Weird. Just keep going.
Came back to this one.
Yeah, I know, because we're still recording. So, and we got almost halfway through. So keep going. Just okay. We're still recording. All right, perfect. Okay, so that's where you said doctor. That's where you were.
So Dr. G, Dr. G really helped us identify the skills that were specific to building kids' resilience. What do they need to be able to handle the challenges or the changes that are happening in their life? And they are problem solving, perseverance, adaptation, conflict resolution, self-regulation, self-advocacy, cognitive skills, and communication strategies.
I do want to say in here, I have a client who's a mom who created a plush that on the outside you would think it's a comfort plush. It's a plush and it is a little weighted. And it's called like the soothing snuggler. That's like, so you're like, oh, comfort. But it's so interesting when she was talking to me about why she created it. she was like, plush are great, weighted plush are great, but all they do is what you're saying, Rachel. They just comfort for recovery. So her being a clinical psychologist, her product teaches kids some of these skills that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Like teaches them how to be aware of their surroundings and their emotions, because it talks and teaches them these things. So it's more than just a plush. And that's just, I feel like this is just you and this doctor together have elevated and created this almost this pitching angle that anybody that has a toy that does help develop these skills can use. Like, this is like, you can pitch to media and say, I've got a mesh product. If you don't know what mesh is, listen to this Toy Coach podcast with Rachel Harmuth.
Exactly.
No, but really, you've created this angle for people to promote their products with. This is amazing.
Well, I think that the key thing is we all know play is amazing. And we know play is important. But I didn't have the vocabulary
The articulate. You were going to say articulate, right?
Exactly.
It's like
I couldn't articulate why. So this to me was so much more. It's not
Clear.
that this is radically, and we're not changing the kinds of products that we make. We're just understanding what they do for kids on a level that's different from how we've understood before. We've given ourselves a vocabulary to talk about beyond like, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, which are super important. But like now we have a vocabulary. We can talk about things like perseverance and adaptation, which is so important, but we just didn't know how to talk about it or look at it that way before. So to your point, it's exactly it.
And now you can even market products to parents differently. Like, this will specifically help with problem solving and self-advocacy skills. And that's so much more helpful to them than just saying, like, I don't know, buy this truck that flips over 10 times for $9.99. Like, why?
Right.
Like, why should I buy
Like, play
this?
is fun.
Yeah. So
like...
this is... this is so much clearer, and this is great. Yeah, go.
Yeah, and that truly, that was the whole thing of like, okay, we need communication skills, we need a vocabulary, and so But so we took these 8 skills and we said, okay, what kind of products develop these 8 skills, right? And so we identified 4 different areas of products, and this is where it got really interesting because this is far bigger than ThinkFun, right? Like, we started it here because we just took a step back and was like, okay, we're going to stop looking at our brand for a moment and look at just kind of the world of what's happening.
Smart.
And then pull it back in. But there's 4 different areas of products that we found that really build these 8 skills. And they are products that focus on problem solving, products that focus on storytelling, products that have increasing challenge over the duration of play, that have levels or cycles that get harder as you play, and products that draw children and their adults together. Right. And so for us at ThinkFun, we got really excited because we do a couple of these really, really well. Like we're like, wow, our product as it stands does a couple of these really well. And as you look at the marketplace, there are products from other companies that do some of these really, really well. And so when you put the whole world of toys together, like, we've got this, guys. We've already got this with the product that's out there. We just need to understand that, right? Like, there are amazing storytelling products out there. There are amazing problem solving, products out there. There are amazing products that bring kids and their adults together. And so it was amazing to see, I keep saying amazing, but like, it was fantastic to see that it wasn't about redoing everything that was done. It was about understanding how you pick products for intentionally building these skills, right? So all of this together was about seeing that we have the product already that can build skills in kids to make them more resilient. But then it was really digging in and kind of understanding these 4 different areas. So I'll zip through this really quick, but it was just to help people understand as a whole. So, products that focus on problem solving and perseverance. And they look a lot like STEM products, right? Because a lot of STEM products do this just innately in their process. But these build kids' ability to identify and overcome obstacles.
Yeah, this is so much clearer, I think, even than just STEM. Because STEM, you understand, like, I want my kid to be interested in these career type fields when they grow up. So I want them to play with STEM products, but you don't quite understand what they're doing for them because it's not broken down to this level. So this is great. Yeah, this is broken down. You're like, oh, obviously problem solving and perseverance. They need that to go into science or go into, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Encouraging storytelling. So this I really loved because I think, there's so many areas for girls where it's a whole categories, right? Like, dolls are sort of the quintessential version of it. But if you think about sort of the greater picture of play. There's this action, the whole world of action figures is amazing.
Yeah.
The little tiny army men, when kids create scenes with their toys, even if it's just, stuffed animals and blocks, and they're building these sort of experiences and stories, that is really crucial for kids to understand how to communicate what's happening to someone else,
Yeah.
which
Empathy.
translates to how to communicate what's happening to themselves. And that
Self-advocacy.
builds
Yeah.
self-advocacy,
Mm-hmm.
which is, essential as you talk
Mm-hmm.
about mental health. If you can
Yeah.
explain what's happening, or have a story to try to comprehend what's going on and communicate that, it's huge as you get older and are experiencing struggles or anxiety overall. So this
And
is, I think, one of those really important areas.
I want to plug
Um,
something else for give people an example. Like
yeah,
there's a woman, Julie Deeney. She created a card game. She's also a psychologist. These psychologists love to come up with product. But
and they're good at it.
they're really good. It's a tool she uses in her practice that she sells online too, and it's a card that helps kids identify emotions in the kids they see on the cards and explain their own emotions. So I say this to say, anybody listening or watching this video, if you have a product that can help kids develop self-advocacy, this is an angle that you can use to explain to people what your product does.
Right.
It's a mesh product. It encourages storytelling. It helps them develop self-advocacy. All this language is done for you as part of this whole mesh movement. So, don't miss out on it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I spoke at ChiTag, and I had the title of my presentation being like, the products that you are already creating do more than you know. Right?
Ooh,
Like,
good
that was really what it was all
title.
about. It was
Good
like,
title.
there's so much more. You're already doing it. We just need to talk about it and identify it. Okay, so then we jump into new and increasing challenge over the duration of play. Clearly, for ThinkFun, this is a place that
Yeah.
we have passionately done for years and years and years, and it's understanding about the idea of adaptation and sort
Yeah.
of the cognitive skills that go with it, but the idea
Yeah.
that you have success and then you have
It's so
frustration,
good.
and then you have
Yes.
success and then you have frustration.
Oh,
But that builds that, it also builds that perseverance element, right?
yes.
Like, you stay with
Love
it
it.
because you've had the confidence to move forward.
I mean, I
And
love
I
it
think,
for me. You sent me the
yeah,
Rush Hour. You sent me the Rush Hour. Was it Rush Hour, the game you sent me?
I think so. I
Or
think
Traffic
so.
Jam. Traffic Jam, I think. Love
Yeah,
this game. I
yeah.
play it for fun. Well, obviously. But I play it when I'm supposed to be working because it just makes me feel good. And I love it.
Well, and it's that moment where you're like, I know I can get this if okay,
Yes.
I'll try it a different way. And that exact piece of like, I will try it a different way,
Yeah.
right? Like that, think about that in your
It's
life where
so
you're faced with
good.
challenges and you're like,
Yes.
I can't do this. And it's like, okay, well, let me step back. I'll try it a different way. And
Yes.
that's the skill that you learn through
Yes.
this. Yeah, it's super cool.
Sometimes I would go back and I'd be like, I must have set this up wrong because this seems
Exactly.
impossible.
I've done that too.
But I love that game. It when you get it, it gives you that. My mom always says, "Never say you can't." That was her mantra to me when I was growing up. Never say you can't, Azhelle.
Awesome. Amazing
So
mom.
yeah, amazing mom. So that game reinforces that mantra because I'll literally be like, I can't do this. And then I'll be like, okay, let me just take a minute. And then I do
Right.
it. And then you're like,
Right.
oh my gosh, there is a way. You're like, where there is a will, there is a way is what that game says to me. So
And
yeah.
that's exactly adaptation. Like, that's
Yeah.
what you're learning through that
Love it.
process. So
Love it.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then the last one is really about drawing children and their adults together, right?
Mhm.
And we say they're adults because this could be
They're
parents, this could be
adults. It's
caregivers,
cute.
this could be teachers, right? Like, it's their adults, whoever their adults are,
Love it.
right? It's about bringing them together. And this really comes down to communication strategies, conflict resolution, and to understand as you get older and as you have struggles and issues that arise,
Yeah.
that you have people you can talk to and that you've built those communication lines prior to those
Oh.
situations, right?
This could even
It's
teach
really,
people how to play games with their kids better.
well,
Right? Like how to support
it's
your
funny. Yeah,
kid.
one of the things we put together was like this list of questions you can ask
Oh,
even
okay.
after your child has played with something. So even if you're not playing with your child, right, what are questions that you can ask that are sort of age appropriate that focus on these four areas that start the conversation about like, wow, it looks like that what you were working on was really hard. What did you do what did you do to make it work? And
Love
so
it.
you're directly talking about like,
Love it.
problem solving and progressive challenge and things like that. But so yeah, we actually had a little list on the website of like, okay, so how do we encourage the conversations, even if you're not actually doing the play with the child for some of the other areas, how do you develop those communication strategies after the play? So yeah, very cool. Very cool. So then I think that, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I have one more thing. I'm hoping as this mesh movement grows that it will become a tool that designers can use to fight for certain elements of their product. Because I did a lot of craft product development, so I always cared about. I wanted there to be more in the box so the kid could make what's on the box, but they could also make something else, like not like in addition to, but instead of, because cost.
I totally get it. Yeah.
But I was always struggling because that was the thing that was important to me. But cost, sales, you can't go and tell somebody like, we need 50 more gemstones because it's important to me that the kid has
that they can explore. Yeah.
You need a case, and you have created with ThinkFun's help created and promoted this case that I'm hoping can be used for designers in the future to be like, well, if we include 50 more gemstones, we can market this as helping them develop these skills because it will be able to help them develop these skills, and then that's a case for designers to make the product that they want. So that's great. I love it. I love it.
I think that it's also just to understand the power of what you're doing. You do it and you play and you're like, oh my God, I love this. This is so fun. And you can see the development that's happening in that process. But again, it comes back to vocabulary. If you don't have a framework to talk about it, right, then how do you, this is where the idea of products can do more than how they're marketed. Like there's greaterness to it. But the biggest piece for me that I wanted to sort of say here is that this is not an or. It's not, this is, it's funny. I've had some folks be like, this is the new STEM. And I'm like, what? It's a new thing for us to talk about. And STEM's amazing, right? Yeah. Like, look, I don't want to get rid of STEM. I think STEM's fantastic and important and essential, but this is an and, right? Like you can talk about STEM skills, you can talk about mesh skills, but you can have products that do both. Yes. Right. And so if you think of even the things that you're doing, like, okay, if we're doing an outdoor game where you're learning gross motor skills, right? And you're jumping into hoops. Can we add progressive challenge to that? Can we make it where you've got 3 different levels of what you're trying to achieve? Or if you're doing a multiplayer game, can you make sure to reinforce the communication skills that are like, it's an and thing. And to your point, it's just about understanding on a bigger scale what's happening overall,
Mesh seems more tied to play pattern. And
that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like more tied to the whole experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of saying that.
Right?
But yeah, exactly. It's not just like, what do I learn, but it's the process.
The process of learning. It. Ooh, exactly. I like it.
All right.
It's good. It's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Play pattern. I like this.
Yeah.
This is good. So that's the idea as a whole. And then I sort of had that quick vision of like what we've done so far. So we just started talking about this in October of last year. We pulled together all the research and put it into a white paper. So we had sort of the evidence-based research behind it to sort of say how we got to where we got. Yes. And then we started just talking about it. The idea was to just spread the word. Right. So I've been reaching out to all the different sort of retail groups, so Learning Express and Good Toy Group and Astra, and spoke at, the Plant Education Program and Chi Tag and starting to reach out to other youth organizations outside of toys.
Great.
Talk to Sesame Workshop, talk to Boys and Girls Club and kind of say like, hey, we're thinking about this. How does this resonate with you? Is this important? What would be helpful to kind of understand where to go from here? And of course, we put a website together with just kind of the basics. Like it's a super tiny little 3-page website, but it's just to house the basics and like the downloadables that were available for parents and for retailers overall. And then what's next? So we put together a task force that is multi-stakeholder. So there are manufacturers, there are retailers, we have a couple speech therapists, we have some teachers, we have social worker, designers, sort of all coming together at all different levels and saying like, this resonates with us. What should we do with it? Right? Like, how do we make it impactful and important to the industry, to the world? Like, what do we do? And so we're just in the sort of the beginning of development of that task force right now. And we're looking at putting the mission together and sort of the plans for the first 2 years. We encourage anybody who wants to join, go to meshhelps.org and sign up. We would love it. Like, if this is really meant to be sort of an open invitation to anybody who says, wow, I really want to be part of building mental health through play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, and then of course at ThinkFun, we have our own specific pieces. We look at every product now through the lens of what of these skills does this product develop? And we're talking about how we communicate that to parents and working on pulling those two pieces together overall. But I think that the most important thing for us to come out with is this is bigger than our specific company. This is bigger than, ThinkFun or Ravensburger. And we want, as an industry, to say, help us help kids. Like by bringing this vocabulary and starting to understand the impact of the products that you already make, what amazing things that they do for kids through their play patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Right. We can make a big impact. The moment for me on this that was so important was like realizing that outside of parents and educators,
Mm-hmm.
like we as an industry have the greatest opportunity to have the most impactful. We make the toys, we make the tools that they use in their everyday life. Like we can have this huge impact if we understand it and can bring it to life. So that was just the really big piece overall.
Is there like a badge for a mesh mesh identifying product? Well, a product that fits mesh standards. Are you planning to make one, some sort of like review process? Like,
this is one of the big conversations that the task force is having is like, do we want to sort of create that, just create some kind of like, here are the guidelines and have to have the mesh logo and sort of what would that mean? The task force, and again, we just started, so it's pretty new overall, but that's kind of the goal, is to say like, do we try to do, I mean, I know that the TIA is doing it for STEAM products right now. And it's like the sort of review process. Like, do we want to set up something like that? Is that the place that would make the biggest impact? And then how do we communicate that out to parents? So we're definitely looking at that, but haven't determined. Again, we just had our first meeting last month to sort of say like, hey, what do we want to do? But that's definitely one of the conversations that we're having right now.
Yeah, you should. And then you can put those 8 different, like, could be little logos. Like, which ones does this fulfill? Like that's great.
Exactly.
I'm going to do something. I have an idea of putting together for a download for this episode on the toycoach.com/164. If you want to learn about mesh and you want to follow this, become part of the movement, the link to the mesh website will be there. But I'm also thinking I can create a quick template for people that want to pitch their product with a mesh focus. Like, say, hey, have you heard about this thing that's mesh? I've got a product that does some of these things, pitching to the media in the sense. I think that could be a nice template for people to start out with, alerting the media that mesh is a thing and saying like, we've got some products here that fit mesh.
Right. And I think that the key thing is just to start the conversation. And that's that'd be a great way to sort of be like, here's a framework of how to have this conversation.
Yes.
And how to talk about a deeper level of play than what we normally talk about,
Love
so that's
it.
super cool. Yeah.
That's so great. So what would you say would be a huge success for mesh to have accomplished by this time next year?
Oh, wow. Okay. So by this time next year, I think, first and foremost, I want the task force to be able to come together. And I love the fact that it is across all different manufacturers and all different retailers. And it's got, people from all areas to come together and really identify how we talk about it as a whole. But I think if next year people use the word mesh and understood as a vocabulary for play patterns that build resilience. Like if it was a term that people knew and understood, and it's exactly to your point, when you're pitching a product, you can say, hey, okay, look, this does fine motor skills and it does adaptability and perseverance. So these are the mesh skills that it develops.
Yes.
And if we could start to get that to parents in a way that helps them pick product intentionally to build their kids, like that would be
the dream.
Huge win.
If you had a parent with a shelf that was like the colors of the mesh skills and they had toys and like that would be, that's the Instagram photo we're waiting for. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like that's that like super, super amazing TikTok parent who has like the beautiful home. Right. Yeah. As compared to like the piles of stuff on a shelf. Yeah. That would be super cool. But I think also with retailers, helping retailers help customers, especially in specialty.
I know.
Like
I love
the
that with your
benefit.
download.
Yeah.
I'm encouraging anybody listening to go to the Mesh website and get the downloads, because there are conversations in these download guides on how to talk to people that are in your store that are looking for certain types of products, and how to explain Mesh to them briefly and say what kind of skills certain toys can cover in
Yep.
that arena. So yeah, like
Yep.
that's so great
And
too.
we have sample sheets of like, okay, for a 3 to 6 year old,
Yeah.
here are products across the industry in
Yeah.
problem solving, in increased challenge, in
Love it.
storytelling, and the cool thing is those weren't put together by us at ThinkFun, because again, I don't have the perspective of the whole
Industry.
world of toys. So
Yeah,
I sat down with some folks from a really amazing specialty store, and we like literally
Oh,
got pizza
great.
and wine and sat
Okay.
down one night and was like, okay,
What fits in the, yeah.
7 to 10 year old storytelling. What are the amazing products out there? And that's where those lists came from, was from retailers,
Oh,
sort of
that's
pulling
great.
together and saying, here's this, what they see across the whole spectrum of toys. So yes, absolutely check it out. And there's a for the stores, as part of the store training guide that we put together, we have a scavenger hunt, which is like, okay, so now you learn the basics of it. Now here's your
Oh,
scavenger
fun.
hunt. Go look on your own shelves and
What
see what
fits?
would be problem solving for a 11-year-old. What
Love
would be
that.
storytelling
It's a
for
different way for
a
them to
6-year-old?
sell too and engage with their customers in the store. It's
Yeah.
great. It
Yeah.
doesn't just have to be like, what birthday are you shopping for? Now you have a
Right.
new topic of conversation.
Well, and we have at ThinkFun, we do have, if anybody who downloads the training guide
Uh-huh.
and does it with their staff, just email us, and we have buttons that say,
Oh,
ask me why kids need mesh, with
the
this like great
the
picture on it,
badges
so that they
have
can
begun.
literally put
Yeah.
buttons. Yep,
That's
exactly. You get
that's
your
great.
bling,
Oh,
you
that's so
know?
cool. Oh, that's
But
great.
again, just meant to start that conversation and grow that conversation.
So, okay, I want to get into our closing questions.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
are non-mesh questions, but they're very
Okay.
important to the listeners of the podcast. What was the best piece of advice you received in the first years of your toy journey?
Oh, interesting. Okay. In the first years of my toy journey,
Yeah, did something stick out in your mind?
well, it's funny. Okay, so when I first went into sales, it was actually in my interview for sales. And I remember going in and being like, these are all the reasons why, like, I am the person that you like. I was so
Yeah.
excited and I was so into it.
Yeah.
And I had this amazing boss at the time, and he looked at me and he went, I said yes. Stop selling. Right? Because I would
Oh,
keep going. I would keep going and keep going, and he would be like, okay, good. And I would keep going and keep going, and he's like, take the yes.
oh
Right? Like,
my
stop selling.
gosh.
It was just, but it was a really helpful. It was a really helpful piece of advice for the rest of my life, because I get very excited. I'm a very passionate person, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, when you get the win, take the win. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And stop pushing and pushing and pushing on top of it. Now, I think that was one of the sort of the best
That's a great
pieces
one.
that helped me regulate my passion and my enthusiasm and get people on board, and also learn to stop talking and let other people talk, right?
Right.
Like you have that moment of like, you've got the win. So that was
Chill.
a really, really great. Yeah, exactly. Chill out.
And my last question for you today is, what toy or game blew your mind as a kid?
As a kid?
As a kid.
Okay. All right. As a kid, okay, so it was actually a blocks and marbles game that my brother and it was literally just the square blocks of wood that had the holes that you did like a marble run with, that had like
Uh-huh.
the planks and things. And actually I met the guy who did it at one of my first toy fairs. He was there with this, like, the only thing he had was this like amazing blocks and marbles game. But we used to build these massive, massive, massive blocks of marbles, marble run, and that would be the kind where you would hide. You'd have like 4 parts in the top you could put it in, and you would hide which one it would come out, and we would make these sort
Oh.
of games for each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that it blew my mind as much as the play level and the fun factor of how long we played with this product, and the ability to design things that had mystery to, like, you couldn't see which path it would go down, and I got to like trick my brother, which is always fun.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of my absolute amazing products as a kid. You know,
Do you remember the specific name of that product?
I really think it was called Blocks and Marbles. Like it was something.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, blocks and marbles. I'm gonna look it
Yeah,
up.
really. And this was like 42 years ago,
And
so it
that's
was a
why this
really
is a
really long
great
time ago.
question. That's why this is one of
Um,
my favorite
yeah.
questions. I love it. I literally most times buy the games that my guests say that they like, the product. So I have all these like vintage toys around my house now. Like it's a
So I
problem.
will tell you, there are much more advanced versions of this now.
Yeah.
So that are like, but again, it's the idea of being able to build
Yeah.
marble runs. I think that if I had, I had a product again, back to this marble run idea that was Sky something, that was like this like super finicky thing that had tracks. It was like a Gravitrax before there was Gravitrax.
Okay.
Like if I was a kid now, like Gravitrax would be like my total happy place, right? Like the idea of this like Rube Goldberg machine thing that I build, and it has things, trampolines that bounce, and all that kind of good stuff to it would be my absolute heaven.
Now, Rachel, where can people connect with you? If they want to
Oh,
connect with you or learn about Mesh, let us know
yeah,
where to go.
absolutely. Absolutely. Reach out on LinkedIn. I'm not super phenomenal at social media, but I love LinkedIn. So reach out on LinkedIn is the best way, or reach out to ThinkFun or to Ravensburger, and you can get to me. But the direct path is probably best with LinkedIn overall. And
Yeah.
you'll see my little mesh background that I have on my LinkedIn thing as we try to spread the word.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. This was an amazing
Thank you
talk.
so much
Great
for having me.
presentation. Can't wait to share the video. If you are listening to the audio now, head over to YouTube. A few hours after the audio is posted, we're going to also post the video to YouTube. So make sure you watch the video so you can see her amazing presentation, the visuals as we were chatting. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
Yes, see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, toy people. My interview with Rachel Harmuth, the head of ThinkFun. I hope you learned a lot from this chat. Now, I do want to say this before we keep going to our conclusion. The Mesh Group is holding a webinar tonight called Mesh Strengthen Kids' Mental Health Through Play. The link will be in the show notes of today's episode. It is tonight, so hopefully you're not listening to this episode too late. You can register for that. But if it happens that you listen to this episode after the air date, you can still go and follow the Mesh movement online at meshhelps.org, or you can connect with Rachel on LinkedIn. All of those links will be waiting for you at the show notes. So if you can't remember them or write them down, all you have to remember is this, thetoycoach.com/164, and scroll down, look for the mentioned in this episodes tab, click that, and you will see all of the links from today's episode. Key takeaways I want you to pull from today's episode is the understanding of what Mesh is. While talking with Rachel, I came to my own conclusion that Mesh really focuses on the play pattern of your products. Likely you already have products in your assortment or in your line that help promote and build Mesh skills. So all you have to do is start learning what those skills are. And I bet you're going to find a new way to talk about your product with consumers or with your buyers or even with your internal teams. Learning about Mesh is not only for parents who want to learn how to better play with their kids, how to help them develop social emotional skills. It also is a useful tool for toy designers who might need a reason to keep certain features in a product when they might be asked by a sales team member or someone to change those features. But it's also helpful for sales team members to have these tools to sell products to buyers with, to explain how their products help kids not only have fun, but build things like problem-solving skills. Mesh is also helpful for toy store owners and their team members because it helps them explain the usefulness of toys beyond fun, and it deepens the explanation of STEM products. If you love this podcast and you haven't already left a review, what are you waiting for? Your reviews mean so much to me. I still get notifications on my phone every time a new review comes in, and it puts a huge smile on my face. It helps keep me motivated to keep coming back week after week and delivering incredible solo episodes and interview episodes like today's episode. So if you love this podcast and you want it to continue, take a moment and leave a review. As always, thank you for spending this time with me here today. I know there are a ton of podcasts out there, so it truly means the world to me that you keep tuning into this one. Until next week, I'll see you later, toy people.
Thanks for listening to Making It in the Toy Industry podcast with Azhelle Wade. Head over to thetoycoach.com for more information, tips, and advice.